Everyone, we're going to get started in about 2 minutes. I haven't visited the dessert table yet, but I've been told it's extravagant. Yeah? I've been told it's more than enough.
Oh, that was good. Well done.
It's more than enough. And you guys, there's so much food left. And there's, who made the coconut jello?
At the dessert table.
And
Excuse me, that's halpia.
Oh. Is that you?
That's left over from the Hawaiian heist.
Oh.
It's made with coconut milk and a starch such as taro or breadfruit, but nowadays we just use cornstarch. It's such a traditional Hawaiian dessert that in Hawaii they serve at McDonald's halpia pies. See, if you come to the show,
I
you
was
would
out of town, Joel, or you know I would be there and I would have eaten everything on my plate. So, there is Hawaiian food, Iraqi food, Mexican food. Every dish there has a story. If you're hungry, you can have more. And if you're ready for something sweet, it's waiting for you. And we're going to get started. And I won't be offended if you also get up later in the meeting to refill your plate. You are welcome.
Oh my goodness.
Really good to know.
I think we played for making no one. That's what's so sad.
Yes.
That's right.
Well, saving money already.
This one got it at midnight from marching band, and I cleared through champion soccer. Amos is very exciting. Well, our friend who lives in South Carolina, that's what she said. He's a Chelsea fan. He was all Chelsea fan. Yeah, he used to give us Chelsea shirts every year. In your hands.
Find a new team to cheer for. For the playoffs.
Cheering for you.
I'm pretty sure they're playing
Yeah, we get COVID for
No, Spirit is watching the cover game.
sometimes I $500 like gym card.
But with everything, he plays with those two teams. And then we played with Orlando. And what time? What happened our people happened exactly.
Okay, so who won that?
Who won that?
You guys
Oh,
did
yeah,
play
it was
with
3-2.
So we'll see if you guys are like Nostradamus with the. Okay, hi everyone. Hi Pam. How are you? Scanning for Will. Are we live? Do you know somebody if we're live? You might be getting food. You might be getting dessert. Can you tell?
You are live.
Oh, we are live. Hello, friends at home. So glad you could join us. We can't offer you the array of desserts that are next door, but we are so glad for your company and presence. Friends, we're going to go ahead and get started. I know that normally this is just a sharing time, and today it's going to be a sharing time with some official business. So please be aware of that. I'm looking for my clerk as well. Hey, hi Janice, thank you. This is so official. I have called this special called Congregational / Stewardship Meeting at 10:37 with prayer. And I know we've already prayed a lot today, but
11:37.
what did I say?
10.
I'm already on wrong. Okay.
Time change.
We're going to pray anyway because God is good. So God, we come before you again asking that you would be at the center for all of our business. And even as we discuss joyous things and difficult things and financial things, I pray that you would lessen any anxiety and fill us with a sense of hope and excitement for the future. I'm so grateful for this place, and we know you are moving among us, and we are thankful. We pray this in your name, Jesus. Amen. Amen. Notice of this meeting was made the previous 2 Sundays, and it's been on the church calendar and in the Staying Connected, which we are required to do. And the purpose of this meeting is to hear our new mission and vision statements, receive ministry highlights and a financial report. We are going to be voting on the 2025 pastor's terms of call. There will be a little more on that later on why we're doing it now and not in February. And we are voting to approve the changes to the bylaws that have been made available in recent weeks. So let me just give you an overview, and Cindy has graciously put some slides together just so you kind of see where we are at. You're going to hear from me right now on our new mission and vision as approved by our elders. Then we're going to hear a little bit from Carlos on Christian formation, including our working group in C7. We're going to hear from John on funding forward. And then we're going to move into fuller updates on where we are at with the refugee apartment and affordable housing. I know there have been some questions, and so we hope that we can answer some of those today. And then we move into time with Stephanie. Move into stewardship Stephanie time with a financial report, and then the business, the terms of call, and the bylaws. And I'll close us out with a few tidbits. So that's where we are. And I have the honor right now of sharing with you some wonderful things that Session has been doing. But I know that, we have some new faces. If you have joined our community, if you were sitting in this room as the result of coming in the last 5 years, but not before then, could you raise your hand? Raise it.
Oh, last 5
Yeah, if you've started coming in the last 5 years, but not before then, maybe that's better. Yeah. All right. So not everyone has been around for the duration of where we're at. So I want to share with you a couple of highlights to frame us sitting together in this space today. You may or may not know that I was hired as pastor of this church in May 2019, and then pandemic hit in March 2020. And we did not slow down because you all work hard and have a lot of passion. There was slowing in many congregations, but not ours. Conversations that had begun were in full force. It was during pandemic that we became a Matthew 25 church. And if you've forgotten what that is, it's a denominational movement that really focused on 2 social ills of our time, which is dismantling structural racism and eradicating systemic poverty. And they joined that with building congregational vitality. So racism, poverty, vitality. It started a decade ago, but we joined on in the middle of pandemic saying, yes, this is a focal point of ours too. We are committing to be a Matthew 25 church. And that has flavored what we've done across the last 4+ years. Yeah. We were already into conversations about pursuing different uses for our buildings from both a stewardship standpoint, a missional standpoint, and a financial standpoint, What are creative sources of income as we see different trends in the church, including different tithing and giving trends? Because we have a generation that once very faithfully gave 10%, and we do not have that anymore. That does not mean that that never exists, or that there is an added sense of greed. Sometimes it is because people give more than 10%, but to a variety of sources these days, not just the church. So as we've noticed these large global shifts in the church, we've been prayerful about buildings, about finances, and our programming. We brought in the Presbyterian Foundation, and if you were with us, this is, 3.5, 4 years ago, we read the Sailboat Church together. There was a season where we prayed these devotions every single day as a community. And then in January 2022, for a full weekend, over half of us, I think closer to 65, 70% of us, which is a great turnout, gathered right here in this room for a retreat called Honoring Our Past, Embracing Our Future. We talked about what we have done, what we want to do. We talked about sustainability. We asked hard questions. We had honest conversation about whether or not we know our neighbor and the needs of the neighborhood. We talked extensively about Jesus and who Jesus is and what he is about and how he is moving among us. It is that church-wide conversation that has continued to direct many of our next steps. You may have heard the Big Mission Planning Group. That group has continued to meet throughout all of this and shift according to where we were as a church. So coming out of the retreat, our values were developed in response to what happened and the collective prayers and perspective. Dream teams rose up. If you were a part of a dream team, can you raise your hand? Okay. So there were 5 dream teams that were looking at different buildings, different outreach opportunities. That work continues. The Big Mission Planning Group, I think it's safe to say at this point, is focusing on affordable housing and our partnership with Community Housing Works. You'll hear about that more in a moment. And meanwhile, through the duration of all of this, with all of the ups and downs of pandemic and limitations and Zoom meetings, because there were starts and stops, if you recall, we have held experiments, some that worked, some that did not. We have held courageous conversations. We have had committee quarterlies that have reshaped kind of faith-family conversations among us. Soon after this, a couple of years ago, C7, our Spanish expression, was formed. There was a working group on homelessness that provided not only counsel, but a book, a theological treaty and a way forward to mission and outreach. They are still sifting through the next steps on that. Most recently, a working group on Christian experience has formed. You'll hear about that from Carlos. And, we won a major grant for a refugee apartment on our land. You'll hear more about that in a moment. We also won a grant for a coach to guide us in next steps as a church. That coach named Rob Douglas, who is both a PCUSA pastor. He has done missional developments as well as served in traditional settings. He has come alongside us, our leadership team, with resources. He crafted a retreat for our elders last year, and there was also a survey that our deacons, our elders, and our staff took to sift through next steps and the results. What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? How are we moving in alignment with how we sense the Spirit directing us? And there was a grant won by Megan.
She had to leave.
Just popped out. A smaller grant, but for worship arts and specifically blessing our kids. So we really work.
On 1001.
There was another grant, thank you, Carlos, from 1001 to support C7 after its formation, but it didn't have any money. And there was a grant there. Thank you. There have been some grants. So we operate, we have a pretty bare bones budget. And what I said during my sermon about not having an endowment, we have one that is a small one that is limiting. We do not have some big security blanket of any kind, which leads to wild and crazy living for Jesus. Stephanie would love it if we could have a big endowment, as would we, or the gift of, I don't know, a house, or something smaller, a bunch of small gifts that can form an endowment, and we would use those well. But in the meantime, we are doing a ton of important, beautiful, big ministry on a shoestring. And I want you to know that you have leaders and staff that are writing grants and trying to get some funds for our creative ideas that the church hasn't been able to afford, and that has been a tremendous blessing. Do we remember our values? These came out of honoring our past, embracing our future retreat from 2.5 years ago, and they are spiritual growth, service, compassion, and community. And if you remember, folks, right, it's spiritual growth, service, compassion, community. Spiritual growth, service, compassion, and community. We have been recalibrating and serving around those for over 2 years now. But our elders have been working faithfully to consider, okay, but what now? So many new faces, such a different world, and yet the same Lord. How do we know ourselves today? Who are we today? And where are we going? So the question of mission is, why do we exist? And how can we communicate that in the most brief and memorable way? And we discerned what the focus would be, but then you got a wordsmith, right? That's what takes months sometimes. We had a whole thing about B's, and the whole thing about C's. The B's were like build, belong, become, and we had a whole C, but maybe it's more like create, connect, care. And then there was really beautiful unity in our elders around the G's. So our new mission, and you'll hear this over and over, is that we are grounded in God, gathered in community, and giving in love. Our vision, I will share with you right now, but hang on, because we will have a whole sermon series next year that is going to take apart every word from this vision statement. If a mission asks, why do we exist? The vision invites people into that being of who we are by clearly defining the destination. Our vision started out very, very long with like 9 steps. And it's not there today. You're welcome. Our coach interceded and said, make it memorizable. Your strategic plan can have many steps. And the vision didn't take as long. We had some specific images that we were collectively drawn to. And here's where we landed. This is our vision. A welcoming refuge where everyone has a seat at Christ's table. A welcoming refuge where everyone has a seat at Christ's table. You will hear us talk about communion. You will hear us talking about how communion is shared in the breaking and the blessing of bread and juice over Christ's body. But that table is not restricted to this space or location. That communion is shared around living room, couches and kitchen tables. That communion of Christ's love is shared in many places. It is not bound here. We are the sent ones of Christ who are a welcoming refuge where everyone has a seat at Christ's table. You're going to hear more about that in coming weeks. But where we're going next is aligning with our committees and all of our leaders on these values, this vision, this mission. Starting this month, in a week, our elders meet the 4th Tuesday of the month. We're beginning with our strategic plan. And that will ask what aligns, what is the priority. If you are familiar with our church and you're involved, you know that we have a lot of things going on, and we are not interested in burning anyone out. We really want this to be spirit-led and sustainable. So we are asking God to focus our efforts and give us what we need for what God is calling us to do. Some of the words that have floated around over and over and over as a desire of this church, both from that retreat 2.5 years ago to this year in our session meetings, is that there's this longing to be a church for El Cajon, for this ever-changing neighborhood, that there's a longing for us to be truly multi-generational, multicultural, multilingual, and to embrace everyone. Those who come before us and that have helped build us up and have spent decades and decades serving and growing this place, to the newcomers who are here among us. So that's coming in 2025. And I'll stop there and welcome up the next person. Are there any questions for me at this point?
Are you out of breath?
I'm excited.
I know.
Are you excited?
Yes.
I mean, we've been through it, and
I'm trying so hard to get it all down, and I can't. I'm out of breath already.
You will get you'll get some letters and things that will help you out. I mean, but yes, let's take a breath because we have been through a lot. We've been through a lot globally and as a nation. Our bodies have been through a lot. We personally, we have lost so many of our dear friends this year. We have buried dear and beloved family members and friends this year. And I'm looking across at some of you where that is most felt. And yet here we are, showing up for one another, and God has shown up for us. So yeah, I'm excited.
And we're okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, but
We're talking about multilingual, and that's very complicated.
it is very
You
complicated.
need a translator, and we still want to know exactly what you meant.
Yeah, but you know something about different languages, don't you?
I think so, so it's not that easy, huh?
Yeah, it is not easy. And we also recognize that there are different populations in El Cajon, and we really want to. Occasionally we translate prayers or other parts of service. It's really important that we have the Lord's Prayer in 2 languages, sometimes 3 today. And you guys, it's all experiment, it's trial and error. We were doing it all at the same time. We got your feedback about that. And you were nervous. You were like, we like it, and so we took that and said, okay, how can we do it differently so that every language is honored, which is why we're not reciting multiple languages at the same time now. But yes, it is complicated. Life, as you know, is complicated, and we just really believe Jesus is with us in it, and in this complicated neighborhood that we find ourselves in, that is so rich. So, next up, I'm going to be welcoming Carlos. Carlos, and then John Fisher. Cindy's coming up after Carlos, and then John, you're coming up with Cindy.
Okay.
Hold on, speaking of language.
Yeah, complicated.
Hold on, here you go.
Well, before anything else, since I started working here, I really fell in love with the congregation, the welcoming sense you have as a congregation. So I don't know how many of you know that I have a twin brother. and he's visiting with me. His name is Jorge. His English name is George. So he's going to be wearing the same shirt today. So just for you to be aware, that's my twin brother, from a different mom. Same father, but different brother.
Different father too.
Different father too.
Father,
All right.
brother.
So that's why people weren't. Well, he's my twin brother, so that's why we wearing the same shirt. Costco is having a great time.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. They get me to buy two. At
There
the
you
same
go.
time.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, you're done. Okay.
Thank you, George. Well, as Pastor Kim mentioned, we have been working on a couple of things, for the last year. And as you already know, first of all, I want to express my gratitude to all of you for the support for our Taquiza. The feedback, was great, and I want to give all the credit to the members of C7. Carmen worked so hard. Natalie worked so hard. Sandra worked so hard. Poor Sam, have to get up, early in the morning to pick up, the whole thing, the Taquiza thing. And so thank you so much. And the feedback has been wonderful. I have received emails, people have approached me. So thank you so much. That was actually the official launch of C7 in our program 1001. So we are expecting to have new members of our community coming and participate with us. Recently, Mary has been coming to our group, to our Spanish Bible study. If you want to experience your Bible study in Espanol, please feel free to come. And Mary has been bringing a friend of her. So we are looking forward to next year. And besides all that, and I'm saying this with all modesty in the world, we have the Presbyterian and a couple of congregations coming to us looking for guidance and looking for inspiration when it comes to Latino ministries here in San Diego. So I'm excited. I hope you are too. We're looking forward to continue working with C7 and let's see what happens in the future. When I came on board, you also charged me with the responsibility of looking into Christian education programs here at the congregation. We've been talking about it for more than a year, and finally, just recently, a few months ago, we put together a working group to look into the history of Christian education in this church. We have several members of the Christian Education Committee. Judy, I mentioned Judy as our historian. She is the one that brings the history and help us put things in the right context. Marcia Boring is guiding us through the process with her expertise in public education, and I'm a process person. If you let me go with this committee, we're going to be meeting for the next 5-7 years, and at the end I will give you a report, and then who knows what's going to happen. But Marcia is the one bringing the structure, bringing the right questions, and guiding us through the process. Many years ago, I learned from one of my professors, Carl Whitaker, who said, what changed people is not what they hear from you, but the experience in being with you, in coming together, in asking the right questions, in going into conversations and so on. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a working group that is looking beyond Christian education. We're looking into Christian experience. And because of that, because we are a congregation and our experience comes from different languages and age and backgrounds and so on, we're looking up, for next year to provide more opportunities for adults to get involved in some questions and some conversation. We want to invite this congregation to theologize. A lot of people think, that theology is only for the experts. Every time we talk about God, that's what we're doing. We're doing theology. Every time we share, how we understand God, what we're doing is doing theology. Every time we talk to somebody about our congregation, our God, our experience, we're doing theology. So next year we want to be more intentional when it comes to adults, possibilities and programs. And my promise and my commitment to you is that I will keep you posted regarding the working group on Christian experience, and I hope you will participate when we're ready to launch, the programs. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Carlos.
So, last fall, I attended a Stewardship Kaleidoscope event in Minnesota with Kim. And one of the speakers I listened to, she